Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Potcotter, and you're listening to Call Talk for September 23rd, 2020. Today's topic is Emerging Best Practices for Recruiting and Training in the New Normal. Advice from Contact Center Excellence Manager. If you're listening live, we invite you to be part of the show and ask questions. Here's how you do it. You can email me at calltalk@benchmarkportal.com. I want to remind everyone that all of our shows are archived and available to listen to at benchmarkportal.com any time of the day. And with that, I would like to introduce the host of the show, Bruce Belfiore.
Thank you, Alan, and welcome back to Call Talk, everyone. Now, the pandemic has hit most contact center people really hard, including in the areas of recruiting and training and just agent management in general. And that's why we brought in an experienced manager on the topic for you, Pam Roddy, who is Senior Director of Operations for Maximus Boston. Welcome to the show, Pam.
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay. Well, Pam has been in the contact center management area for over 20 years, so she brings us a lot of experience, and she's been in both the private and the government sectors and has worked both domestically and internationally. She was also one of our all-star panelists on the coronavirus town hall that we had earlier this year, and which you can find on our website. And that was extremely well received for its great insights, many of them from Pam, in fact. So, Pam, it's great to have you on the show. We have a 3-hour topic, but only 30 minutes for the show, so let's get started. Tell us, how do you go about adapting a former in-office call center to a virtual environment under the kind of pressure that you were feeling earlier this year?
Really great question, Bruce, and thank you for having me on the show today. It would have been preferable to establish our remote work policies and practice in advance, but with the rapidly changing circumstances, our level of preparedness was just not feasible. So what I think is really important right now is that we take a step back and take stock of our operation and really understand what we need to address. And I always use, a multi-pronged approach whenever I do that and really look at the 3 pillars of any operation, people, process, and technology. There's 3 things that we know about working remotely. And, that's, there's the lack of face-to-face supervision that people have to deal with, potentially a lack of access to information, and then social isolation.
Right. So these are really very intensely people-focused type of issues, the face-to-face supervision, lack of access to information, social isolation. And part of it just has to do with human nature, what we want, and part of it has to do with what we're used to, but can in fact be introduced to doing something differently, but it takes time and it takes some patience and that all kinds of good management requirements here. So, Pam, what did you learn from the people process technology review that you did? And maybe we could start with the people side because it's so important.
Absolutely. As we look at, what are the needs of our people in this remote environment and how has that changed from pre-COVID? One of the things that's so important is that you need to spend more time on interactions with your staff than you did before. And that they probably will take on multi-facets. You might, things like a daily check-in. Are you having a stand-up meeting or some sort of a team scrum every day? Are you checking in with that individual every day? Maybe it's a text message. How frequent are your one-on-one meetings? What are your communication options, and are you exploiting them? Text message, email, chat and group discussions, virtual meetings. Can you survey and poll people? Town hall meetings, task forces. All of those things are so important with people. And what we're finding overall is people need more feedback and recognition in a remote environment than they would need in a face-to-face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when they're face to face and they have people around them, they're sort of continually getting feedback in one way or another, and it's both from supervisors, but also from coworkers, and they're able to chat with them during breaks and during lunchtime and that sort of thing. And you don't have that in this situation, so it really you have to be proactive, as you were saying, and sort of structure your management style to provide that contact and feedback, and do it in a way that's going to work for your center, but is going to work. You've got to make it work. Yeah, that's great. Other things on the people side?
Sure. I think the key is the supervisor. And we all know in this industry that there's nothing more important than the supervisor to CSR relationship. And that's never been truer in the remote environment. So just like, a lot of people in education, teachers and all of that have taken some time over the summer to revamp their curriculum and revamp what they do, supervisors need to do the same thing. They really need to revamp their process for engaging employees, and they need support from leadership on how to do that. They may need some technical training. Not all supervisors are adept at things like running a virtual meeting. So really making sure that you invest in the supervisors and that they'll pay it forward. We also looked at the ratio because of the fact that the CSRs often look at that supervisor as their lifeline as they adapt to the remote environment. We did lower our ratio of supervisors to staff. So, where we would go 15 CSRs to one supervisor, we've brought that down, depending upon the tenure of the team, to almost half of that in some instances.
Wow, that's pretty dramatic. And have you seen good results from that?
Extremely good results. I don't know that we'll need to sustain that long term as everyone gains experience. But what we have learned is that new people definitely need, sort of like we would do in office in a nesting environment, creating smaller teams because the supervisor is going to need to be answering more questions, helping them with resources and those types of things. We'll probably sustain that with our employees with less than 6 months experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, that's important. And, what you said about the supervisor being the key to success in the contact center is something that, as you know, I've been beating the drum on for many years, and in fact have suggested that we change the word supervisor to either agent advocate or CSR advocate, and actually change the mentality of the supervisor from that of being a supervisor to that of being somebody who's a cheerleader, but a cheerleader who demands accountability, so that you basically say, I want, as a supervisor, I want my agents and my CSRs to really succeed, and by doing that, I'll succeed as well, and have an entire sort of mentality and even reward structure that's built around that. So I think that's really important. What other things in terms of, how about polling and surveying agents? What can you say about that?
That's been a really key tool that we've used. So sometimes in a meeting where your supervisor's there and some people are hesitant maybe to tell you really the down and dirty. So we've used a combination of meetings as well as surveying people to really understand what's going on. And we found that people were very honest about, my computer stinks, or, I can't get a headset that works right. And so it allowed us to really understand issues both at the aggregate level to see what our common themes were. And then we got some good things that maybe people weren't comfortable about speaking, in an environment one-on-one. Polling is also another fun thing to do, and if you use Zoom or something like that, is It's how do I keep people engaged in the meeting? And sometimes we find that during a meeting to stop and do a polling question is a great way to keep people engaged in a meeting, and active participation what has been very something that we've been really focusing on, and polling can be a fun way to do that.
Oh, that's a great tip. That's a great tip, because a lot of people are using Zoom meetings, and I've been on tons of them. I have not seen a whole lot of them where they've used the polling function. But again, if you've done what you've indicated, which is to teach people on the technical aspects of these virtual meetings, then you can actually use that and use it effectively. That's great. That's great. And other things, how about you had mentioned something about a CSR task force. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. We've had a CSR task force in place for quite a while in our contact center. It's provided invaluable voice of the CSR to senior leadership. And keeping that alive in our remote environment and switching it has been invaluable. We just wrapped up. People serve on the task force for 1 year, and then we wrap it up and we cast the net out for another group of. We keep it about 8 to 10 people, and so I had the pleasure of a debrief. And not only did we get a lot of very important information about what our staff needed for resources, how they were feeling, the isolation. The distractions at home and things like that. At the end, they said, you know what, thank you. I never thought that I would have a position like that in the company. I never thought that I would be able to feel so important, because we shared with them all of the things they brought forward and the results of that. We had as a result of that, we did what we call technical office hours, where we actually got key members of our IT team, somebody from the telephony team, and put them on a Zoom meeting. And anyone could call in and get real-time information. And they would also do proactive talk. So it's sort of like this forum, but for CSRs to call in and talk through technical issues. So that was a direct result of the CSR task force. And, to give that back to them and say, you did this, you did that, was a really rewarding experience.
Right. Okay. And the whole idea of getting the information from the front line is so important. We, as you know, we do surveys of agents all the time, and we publish that report called Agent Voices. Actually, we've had 2 versions of that. And, with thousands and thousands and thousands of agents, and it's been great doing crosstabs and trying to figure out what people are really feeling and what really makes them happy as contact center agents. But this year has obviously upended a lot of things. And there have been a couple of contact center managers who have said, well, I want to wait till things settle down, and then I'll survey my agents. I want to wait till things settle down, and then I'll see what my agents have to say, or my CSRs. And I'll say, think about that, because really getting that input now, and again, the kind of input that sometimes people are hesitant to give face-to-face or even voice-to-voice, you can get through these surveys, and there can be some nuggets in there that can really make a big difference and maybe don't cost much money, or if anything, and really can help to turn a situation that may be a little bit tenuous into a much stronger situation. So that's really great input. And another thing you've talked about is supporting the culture. And obviously, when you're in a brick and mortar situation, you're walking into a building, you can see the mission statement on the wall. You can sort of feel the vibe, and you can be talking to your managers who are going around sort of walking, hopefully, talking the talk and walking the walk. You don't have that when everybody is at home. So talk to us a little bit about supporting the culture in this sort of a situation.
So important, because we know when we talk to people about what's their favorite part of the job, and what, when we look at, we all want to promote tenure in our call centers, right? Turnover is one of our biggest issues. And it's the culture. It's the people you work with. So how do you support that? really one of the most important things is you have to increase the amount of rewards and recognition that you give in a remote environment. People are hungry for feedback, and their biggest fear when they work remotely is that I'm going to lose touch. People aren't going to know what I'm doing or how good a job I'm doing. So really, we talked a little bit a minute ago about increasing feedback. You have to also increase recognition and look for opportunities for shout-outs, more shout-outs, really making sure that people know that you know what they're doing. So that's critical. And we've had to revamp our incentives. Things like pizza lunches are a little tougher to do, but we've gotten good at sending things to people's homes. We have a corporate Grubhub account, so a manager can reward somebody and send lunch to their home. So activities like that. It's also really important when you bring new people on that you start to build that culture immediately. And things like creating buddy systems and mentoring so that they have a connection in the organization to another CSR and giving them time to foster that relationship is really important so that new people understand the culture. And giving people time to do social activities as your call center work week allows, to allow people time to have a social breakout. Maybe it's a club, a book club. We do meditation groups, things like that, where people can come offline and join a group of colleagues for something other than just a work-related topic.
Okay, I think I want to join one of those meditation groups. That's really good. And I think when you were talking about earlier, sort of fear of losing touch, this fear of invisibility, of kind of becoming invisible because of the fact that I'm not there anymore, or becoming visible only to a much smaller group of people, et cetera. And so through the increase in recognition and the increase in the interactions that you were talking about, that can be so important in terms of counteracting that and making people feel that they are, in fact, part of what's going on and part of the culture. And another possibility is videos, particularly when people are being onboarded. A lot of companies have videos, and maybe they need to fine-tune those or bulk them up a little bit. Have the videos basically really convey very clearly what the culture is and what the expectations are in terms of performance and in terms of also just personal ethics, et cetera, and have testimonials of agents, CSRs, talking about those things. That can be really good because it puts it right in front of the people who are coming in, right when they're coming in, right? And so then the rest of the onboarding and the rest of the training, et cetera, needs to support it, but you've set the table, if you will. And that, I think, can be a powerful thing to do. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that setting that table, as you said, and using videos are so important. We've really looked at our entire training curriculum and revamped it to make sure that it's heavy enough in those aspects and interactive enough so that we're holding people's attention.
Right. Okay, great. Well, let's go on to process items. Talk to us about establishing rules of engagement, setting expectations, concrete flexibility, et cetera. Talk to us about those aspects.
So process, on one hand, I think it's really important. People like to know what's expected of them, and they like it to be consistent. And I think in this world of disruption and chaos, to know that there is consistency and reliability in your workplace and how it's approached can have a stabilizing impact. We all know CSRs, when we go through change, it's tough, it's disruptive. That many people that like the call center space and like being a call center agent do so because they like that they like that routine. They like the structure of a call center. So on one hand, it's really important to let people know what to expect, how their breaks will be scheduled, how their schedule will be made, how they access their supervisor. All of those things that seem pretty basic sometimes, really important that they're reviewed and that your supervisors really understand that these are so important, and above all else, nothing comes above the fact that they have to be there to support their folks. That being said, there's a flexibility that I think our CSRs need right now, that we have to, some of the processes that we've had in place around schedules, around work weeks and things like that, we're finding are difficult. Many of our staff have their children at home, and they're trying to work around kids' schedules and other distractions, including taking care of people. So we've, on one hand, we need to know when you can work, but we're giving more flexibility into your schedule than ever before. Literally, if you want to come in and give us a few hours of work, and then you need a few hours off, and then you want to log back in, we'll do those type of split days. So, we need to be concrete in that we need to know when we can count on you, but yet flexible in that we'll provide you with more flexibility than we have before. As I've talked about, you have to look at all your training and really look at your procedures for training, and how are you going to be assured that people are engaged in training. Of course, more breakout sessions. Again, knowing your technology, Zoom has the ability to create breakout sessions. How do you gauge someone's involvement? Is it the amount of responses that they give? Is it the activity that they have in a chat session? Do you have to do more independent sort of activities that people have to present and things like that? And the importance of scorecards and things like that, so people know exactly where they stand. More reliance on our workforce management. We've put them through some paces with this scheduling, and they in making sure that they understand what the workforce is that we're going to have available. And so all of those things, we've really had to look at everything a little bit differently. So I guess in summary, the importance of process is there, but you can't hold on to some of the processes that you've had in the past. They're not going to work in this environment. So how do you find that balance between flexibility, but yet a well-established work model?
Right. What's interesting is we'll get into technology in a minute, but really the processes are going to be so dependent on those technologies. And you were mentioning, for instance, the Zoom breakout sessions. And I'm an assistant scoutmaster, and we use those Zoom breakout sessions for patrol corner, so there's the overall troop meeting, which is the big one, and then we go into the patrol corner. And what's interesting there is the fact that leadership on the part of the person who's responsible for the breakout session is extremely important, because you have to get a certain amount of things done in a certain amount of time. And there's got to be that the balance between personal interaction, because, of course, this is an opportunity for the interaction on the part of the breakout group, and following the agenda, making sure that when you get pulled back into the main meeting again, you've gotten the stuff done that you have to get done. And so there's leadership, and there's a certain finesse that goes with doing that well, and teaching your people how to do that is important. And I like what you said about scorecards, and dashboards would be in the same realm there. And in terms of working around kids and older parents and that sort of the flexibility that we have now is so dependent on workforce management capabilities. And those are so much better now than they were, say, 10 or 15 years ago. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that and as we sort of slide into the technology part of what you wanted to talk about, Pam.
Sure. Yes, workforce management capabilities are really so much more robust, and you can do things like schedule bidding ahead of time and let people choose their schedules. You can build profiles as well as get more enter data information real time about how your call center is doing. So as we're multitasking and working remotely, I've really relied both on the technology of helping the flexibility of the scheduling, but yet still having a really strong idea of what I have for capacity and demand each day. And then also really relying on real-time updates on how things are going, so we can do just-in-time, changes as our workforce demands. One of the biggest challenges I've had is call forecasting, and during the pandemic, we've gone from very little volume at first to then large spikes in volume as in a healthcare government services area, the demand has increased. So, moving people around, understanding our workforce has been really challenging.
Yeah,
the other
actually,
thing I can say.
Sorry, no, I was just going to add right onto that one of the things that can be difficult too is saying, okay, well, in order to meet the demands of the actual volumes as opposed to the forecast, then that means that you have kind of knocked the wind out of other things that you wanted to do in terms of group meetings or coaching sessions, etc. And now there is technology that can actually help out with that. And so there are sources and there are opportunities to sort of make that chess game a little bit easier for workforce management and for management as a whole. So sorry for interrupting, but back over to you.
No. So continuing on technology, I just wanted to touch on a couple of other things outside of workforce management. I think, like everybody, I'm sure we've been in this 7 months. So first of all was just for those of us that were not remote, the scramble, do I have the right technology to move people remotely? Do I have the right bandwidth? What do I do? How do I deploy this? And so we've gotten there, right? We're up and running, and now it's sort of step 2 in our technology assessments. And what for us, what that's meant is equipment replacement. Is if you have a CSR in the field and their keyboard or mouse or headset, breaks, we've had to establish 24-hour, FedEx delivery systems. And it seems rather rudimentary, but it wasn't something we had a lot of experience with, and we've had to really put that in place. So, it's the step lifeline to us. So really assessing where our technology, now that we have all the basics out there, needs to improve. One of the things we're also doing with regards to technology is we have a really nice knowledge management system. We use the Panviva platform. Mm-hmm. But what we were finding is that our CSRs, our supervisors, particularly for inexperienced agents, were spending a lot of time pointing people at the right places in our knowledge management system. And talking to Panviva, they have what they call a nugget, which interfaces directly in. We use Microsoft Teams as our chat methodology. So you can put this widget right in your Teams environment. So when the CSR chats a question, it will automatically go to the Knowledge Center and pull that out so that the supervisor doesn't always have to provide that direction. And so it really is something we're piloting right now, but a way that we're looking to enhance our knowledge management one step further to be more conducive to the remote environment. We also have redone user guides, step-by-step incremental, and analysis of tickets by a user. Because certainly folks that have low technology acumen are those that are probably at risk the most. And they may be great agents that were doing really well in office, but are having a real hard time at home. So in addition to some of the big system things we all know that we want, we've also tried to take a bottom-up approach to looking at our technology through the eyes of our CSRs, our agents, And that's, again, tying back to that survey and that feedback and polling loops have really helped us a lot of where we need to focus.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And what you were talking about with your knowledge management platform, and basically it's sort of an AI assisted, it sounds like, component to, escalation. So very, very interesting.
That's right. That's right.
Great. Are there any other considerations that you'd like to add in? Because we are getting toward the end of our show here, unfortunately. But anything else that you wanted to mention?
Other considerations, I think, are, I didn't hire like a lot of these agents with a work from home thought. So not everybody is well suited for the work from home. And we've had a few cases where, despite everything that we've done, it's just been not a great alignment. We do have some flexibility to bring people back in office if necessary, and we have had to do that. So not everyone is well suited, and we have had situations where people, for not work related but personal issues, feel safer in the office. So it's been nice for us to have that, but I know not everyone does. So I think, there has been some fallout from working from home. And people are really in two camps right now. Some people are loving working from home and hoping that they'll be able to do this long term. Some people are doing okay, but really do miss that office environment and are looking forward to when they can return. So, we're trying to meet the needs of both of those people. And, there are some silver linings here in that some people are enjoying working from home. We also, it's hiring and recruiting. My office is in downtown Boston, was always a challenge. So it's allowed me to expand my catchment area and hire people in a radius that I can ship them equipment or they bring their own device. And that potentially they wouldn't have been a viable candidate for me in the office.
Right. And actually, given your position too, one of the things that you will be looking at going forward, and when it is possible to bring people back to the office, if you want to bring them back to the office, is the public transport issue. Because I've been to a lot of centers that are kind of in either semi-rural or suburban areas and where everyone literally comes to work in a car. That's not the case for inner city locations or central locations because it's just the parking is so difficult. So I imagine that's something that you're going to also have to sort of think about going forward because people are going to be perhaps hesitant about public transport longer than they're hesitant about coming into an office situation where, there's spacing and all that sort of thing. Do you have any thoughts on that, Pam?
You're exactly right. 100% of our agents take public transportation into the office, so it's been a big consideration of ours as we had people back in the office. So we do have about 25% of our people in the office. We are finding that we've had to expand our parking that we offer people, reimbursing, because people would prefer to take their own automobiles. We've also had to increase, we have pretty strict screening guidelines, as you can imagine. An app on the phone, temperature taking, people wear personal devices when in the office, and so that they don't get that beat for 6 feet. So we could do a whole radio show on how do you bring people in the office during the pandemic.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think we get one question in from a listener. So, Alan, let me go over to you, and then we're going to have to, I'm afraid, wrap this up, even though it's been absolutely fabulous. Alan?
Yes, we have one from Anthony, and he's asking, did you relax your agent metrics during this crunch?
Good question, Anthony. Yes, we did. We initially, especially for the first 6 to 8 weeks, we relaxed our metrics in that we really just focused on the quality of the call. We were lucky in that our call volume dropped off so that we were able to give people some flexibilities. Now that we are having our agents responsible for metrics, after that 8 weeks, we started introducing them. We did allow people, though, to have somewhat of a less of an adherence score going forward, understanding that they do need more flexibility. There may be interruptions during the day if they have children. So schedule adherence is not as tight as it once was. We're looking more at the global picture of, were they adhering? Did they set their schedule? What were their calls per day? What was the quality of their calls? And so I have had to expand my workforce beyond what it was in office because of that.
Okay. That's great. Well, listen, thank you. I know that's been an issue for a lot of people. So, Anthony, good question, and thank you for that answer, Pam. All right. With that, we're going to have to wrap things up. Thank you so much for your insights. Did you have anything you'd like to add before we hand things over to Alan to wrap up the show?
Not at all. I just want to thank everybody, and tough times, and just stay strong, be brave. Don't be afraid to ask your staff what they need, even though sometimes it may feel like I can't take on one more thing. It really does help.
Okay, great advice. Thank you. All right, with that, over to Alan.
Yes, thanks again to Pam and to Bruce for your insightful discussions on today's show. We hope you can join us next month for another great show, or look at our huge selection of archive shows and hot topics at BenchmarkPortals.com. Then click on Call Talk, where you'll find over 11 seasons. From all of us at Benchmark Portal, keep those headsets steady and your fingers ready. Stay safe, stay healthy. This is Alan Pockhotter signing out. Have a great day.